everyone, good afternoon. My name is Elodie Delagneau. I'm the event manager for Africa Mining Forum. And again, it's a real pleasure for me to be here with you all for the third series of our Africa Mining Tour, hosted by the Rwanda Mines Petroleum and Gas Board. Today's session will be moderated by Laura Cornish, Editor-in-Chief of Mining Review. For the last 3 months, we've been putting together a series of touch points on the region of Africa, which are seeing a lot of mining activity. We've completed East Africa and West Africa, and we are really excited to unpack some of the recent initiatives and challenges brought by the pandemic in Southern Africa. But before I hand over to Laura, I have a few housekeeping that I would like to cover today. Firstly, don't forget that today's session will be available on demand after the live session on miningreview.com and Africa Mining Forum, and is accessible through the same link that you're using now. We have also added some attachments, which are available through the Hands Up tab on the right-hand side of your screen. Next, we would love to hear from you during today's presentation. If you have a question for our speakers, don't be shy and feel free to send it through the Ask Staff a Question box on the right-hand side of the screen. We'll be answering as many questions as we can today, and if we don't get to your question in today's webinars, we'll make sure to follow up afterwards. And lastly, I would encourage all of you to share today's webinar with your social network using the hashtag Africa Mining Forum. Before we kick off this exciting session, I would like to share a poll with the audience. Kindly complete it, and if time allows, we will share with you the results. According to you, which Southern African country delivered the best strategy to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 for the mining sector? Zimbabwe, Namibia, South Africa, or you think that none of the Southern African countries have been mitigating the impact? A few more seconds and the poll will be closed. Great. Thank you very much for everyone that's participated. I would like now to kick off things by welcoming Laura. Over to you.
Thanks, Elodie, and a warm welcome from myself. Thank you for joining today's webinar session that examines key strategic regions in Southern Africa, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Namibia, looking at the junior market and how companies are faring amidst the pandemic, how investment decisions have changed and influenced their businesses, and what plans are in play for the short, medium, and long-term future. We have a full panel and a lot to cover in our session today, so let me welcome and introduce our speakers. We have Sam Hossack, the Managing Director of Prospect Resources, representing Zimbabwe today, Mitford Mandel, the Chief Executive Officer for Theta Gold Mines, representing South Africa, and Dr. Tony Harwood, Chief Executive Officer and President of Montero Mining and Exploration, representing Namibia. A big thank you to our panel for their time today. I look forward to facilitating an interesting discussion. I'll now hand over to each of our speakers to give a brief introduction and insight into the topic. Sam, I'll start with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Laura. Prospect Resources is an African-focused battery minerals business, and we're focused primarily in Zimbabwe. And we have the Arcadia project. It's based just outside Harare, and it's the 7th largest hard rock lithium asset. It's fully permitted. We have completed definitive feasibility study, and we have up to 70% of our product forward sold for the next 7 years. So we're a development business. We're in the process of launching a pilot plant operation at the Arcadia project, and the objective of that is to supply petalite minerals, which is a lithium mineral, to the European glass and ceramic sector, and as well as to send spodumene product, which is for the electric vehicle. So that's basically us, Prospect Resources, and we're based in Australia.
Excellent, Sam. Thank you so much. Mitford, let me hand over to you.
Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I think maybe I must just give a brief introduction to myself. I only joined Theta recently in October as CEO, but I've been involved for a few months with them, and I'll talk a little bit more about the company, I think, a bit later. But you know, maybe just to give an introduction why I joined the company. Really, there were three three main reasons. Firstly, we have amazing gold ore bodies, which I'll talk about a bit later. And secondly, looking at the context of the company, it's a company that comes from the 1800s, the late 1800s. So that historic context is attractive. And thirdly, really, this time that we're in now, there's a great need to create jobs, even before the COVID-19. And but this is really sort of, I guess, been the deciding factor for me is seeing the value that as a company we can create in these areas that we operate. And I think in the context of today's discussion, what we can do for communities and the role that we have to play as the private sector going forward. So a bit more about myself. I've worked with Harmony, De Beers, and the Namakwa Diamonds, and always been attracted to sort of business optimization improvement. I've run both Harmony and De Beers business improvement and asset optimization sort of company-wide initiatives. And whether as a mine captain or general manager or chief executive officer, really the same principles apply. So Theta Gold is now in a time of change. We are busy establishing the company as a gold producer, gold operator, from being an explorer and a project developer. And I look forward to tell you a little bit more about that later. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, and we look forward to chatting some more for the session. Last but not least, Tony, a well-known figure in the Namibian mining industry.
Thank you, Laura. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a geologist. Those who don't know me, I've been knocking around Africa for quite a few decades. Montara is an exploration company. It's run by a geologist. I'm a geologist, and we have a reasonable geological team with lots of experience on the board and management. We listed the company in 2011. We were looking at, we made a discovery of rare earths in Tanzania and took it up the value chain. Rare earth prices went down. We put the assets into care and maintenance. And then we ventured onto a lithium strategy. The shareholders liked rare metals, battery metals, green metals. And so we went on looking for lithium in Africa. I'm based in Johannesburg. It's really the heart of Africa in terms of communications and expertise. Very comfortable here in terms of getting around Africa. So going anywhere in Africa is reasonably easy. So we're looking for lithium. Fundamentally in Southern Africa, there's not very many places you would look for reasonable lithiums. The DRC, the Zimbabwe, and then there's Namibia. There's some small deposits in South Africa and maybe in some of the other countries, but really the big ones are the hard rock type anyway are there, and those are really the only ones you find in Africa so far, the hard rock lithium type plays. So we picked up some lithium prospects in Namibia. We chose Namibia for quite a number of reasons. A big part of lithium is not just finding a deposit, it's finding the right type of deposit. It's also finding deposits and investing in a country that's got good infrastructure. It's got a good, clear mining code, and it's investable. We as juniors, we're raising capital on the public markets, and therefore the perceptions, be real or unreal, of countries and where you're investing your investors' money is pretty important. So we chose Namibia. Very happy about choosing Namibia. Obviously, we've had our ups and downs, and particularly with the metal price and other events that occur with partners and countries where you invest in, but nothing unusual. So Namibia is our choice. It's a great jurisdiction, and happy to represent Namibia as an investment destination for the very same reasons that I guided Montero into investing in Namibia.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, gentlemen, for your introduction. Some interesting regions we're covering today, some interesting projects. So let's dive straight into it. Sam, I'm going to start with you. Can you describe Prospect Resources and your Arcadia project and strategy in just a couple of minutes?
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned, we're a lithium-focused business, and our strategy has been to concentrate on the Arcadia project, which at this stage is the second or the third largest hard rock lithium pegmatite in a reserve in Africa. I think the 7th globally. So it's a very competitive asset, and our strategy has really been developed primarily through the technical strengths that the team have formed. My background as an engineer, mechanical engineer, has been in the shall we say, the mining development space for at least 16 to 17 years. So I've brought a lot of that experience on small and quite mega scale project development to the team. We've partnered up with a really capable team in Cape Town, ADP Engineering, who have special expertise in modularization. And I think what we've been doing is sort of developing an execution plan and technical plan that's bespoke for Zimbabwe. I am also a Zimbabwean. I obviously have lived out of Zimbabwe for over 20 years, but the experiences I've gathered have been in DRC, Zambia, Finland, Panama, Northern Europe, Australia. So a lot of those experiences are quite common, but some are very specific to Africa, and certainly this is one of the best located projects. It's only 35 minutes outside the capital city of Harare. So it's a fantastic project. The strategy is really one of starting small and growth and expansion in line with cash flow. We've looked at a really large scale definitive feasibility level operation, and we've now looked at a much smaller scale that allows us to build on a sort of more organic basis to nameplate. But on that basis, there's really strong cash flows. We've been really well received in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a strong mining jurisdiction, and there's some apparent and optical issues with Zimbabwe, but we don't experience those types of issues, and we're certainly happy to promote what we're doing. So our strategy is really focused on the exploitation of the Arcadia lithium project and taking minerals and products from that pegmatite to the two markets that we want to serve. So that's it in a 3-minute summary.
Excellent, Sam. Thank you. And I think, as you said, a good project really stands for a lot when you're building a new junior mining company in Africa. Mitford, you did give us sort of a great, short but sweet introduction to Theta Gold Mines. But what I really like to unpack with you is talking about South Africa as an investment jurisdiction. And you know, the reality is that the country's investment rating within the mining sector has deteriorated over recent years, mostly because of political instability and some regulatory uncertainty. So where do you think that the country stands at present with regards to investor perception? And do you think this is a fair reflection of the current circumstances in the country?
Yes, Laura, I think I actually choose to answer the question more on the positive, not because I ignore the negatives, but to balance it with the good things that are happening. So yes, the investment downgrading happened, and yes, we experienced a recession and a few other things, but yeah, so we have our problems. But the wise investors would look at the balance, and this is the time, I believe, of great opportunity in South Africa. You know, I'm just thinking, as Sam was talking, I visited Zimbabwe not so long ago, and I had such a different perspective because the first time I was there, and the reality that I saw there is much more positive than what you read and see, and you know. So the stories about South Africa, you know, they're not always totally true. or there's at least a balance to some of those stories. So we have skilled people that's hungry for jobs, especially now after this time, and you know, and we have more. We still have more than our fair share of mining resources in the ground, and we still have good infrastructure. Now, the only thing that really makes investors cautious is the regulatory uncertainty and the economic situation. You know, you can say, well, that is bad for investment, but it also in a big way creates opportunity. And I certainly believe in that. So recently, just in the last, within this month, President Ramaphosa announced his economic reconstruction and recovery plan. And I believe in a big way COVID-19 has actually brought urgency to this. The plan basically calls for greater focus on structural and institutional reforms to boost competitiveness, accelerate investment, and to raise inclusive growth. So, and it includes specifically for us as a mining industry, it includes electricity security as part of the plan. And one thing that certainly should encourage investors more than anything is the proposed halving of turnaround times for mining and prospecting licenses. Now, this stated in the plan is stated in the plan as an actual intervention to improve investor confidence. So that's coming from government, that's coming from the president. You know, other things that's being addressed in this plan is crime and corruption, and we've already seen shortly, sort of at the same time as what these announcements came, that there's high-level arrests being made, and as we know, the ex-president is also having to explain his actions in court at the moment. So, and then also for the electricity network, we also have it mentions modernization of roads, rail, ports, and the agencies, the government agencies that need to deliver these services. So these are good signs, not just in word, but also we're starting to see it in deed. We are seeing a new urgency in the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy in dealing with approvals. So I would say in South Africa, wise investors will balance risk, opportunity, and reward. And if the asset is good and the operators know what they are doing, the geographical risk should be carefully considered together with the opportunities. In South Africa, this is time, I believe, of opportunity.
Well, Mitford, thank you so much for that. That's such positive and refreshing words to hear from you about South Africa, and even that has left me feeling inspired for the country. Tony, let's look at Namibia. I know as a business, your strategy has changed slightly, and you may be not focusing as a core on Namibia. But in your perspective, or from your perspective, why do you think investors should actually look at Namibia as an investment jurisdiction in the mining industry?
Yeah, so you know, as I mentioned before, Laura, you know, I'm a geologist, so I'm driven by geology, and I'm driven by grade and tons and prospectivity. So that's the sort of you know, the professional side of me. And the other side, you know, I'm a CEO of a company. I've got a board of directors and shareholders to report to. We're listed on Toronto Stock Exchange, and therefore, you know, I'm dealing with investors and raising capital, and really that largely determines where you can go. So you know, as I mentioned, we're looking for lithium. So okay, the company's on a lithium strategy. Where do you look for lithium? Well, as I mentioned, DRC, Zim, and Namibia. You know, we chose Namibia. It's an investable place from a Canadian perspective. There's some very good stories in terms of investors making money in Namibia with mines. There's big multi-billion-dollar mines being put up in Namibia. It's got a very good geological survey. It's got some very good geological consultants. You know, drilling companies. You know, assay laboratories. You know, they're probably not as prevalent there in South Africa, but you know, it's you know, the mining code's reasonably straightforward, and it's not changing. You know, so you know, investors are looking for, yes, you've got a great team, Tony. Yes, you've got a great strategy, lithium, right? Okay, where are you going to put our money? Right. It's and you know, and then maybe it's got some good infrastructure. So you know, it's got all those things going for it. So you know, I understand. You know, I've been to Zim, I've been to the DRC, I've done a lot of work in those countries, and again, taking nothing away from them. They're great places to explore and to work, and some great professionals around. You know, exceptional. But I'm also cognizant of investability from a Canadian perspective. And if you're running an Australian company, likewise, or if you're looking for a JSE company, it's the same thing. It's where are your shoulders and where do you invest their money? So, and the other great thing about Namibia, it's got some pretty decent infrastructure. You know, it's got power, it's got road, it's got rail. So they're all the real positives. And yes, we have changed strategy. You know, we're looking at gold now, and you know, you've seen the reasons why. Well, the lithium price halved to what it was. You know, so what do you do when the lithium price halves? You know, you either run away or you just stick in there. And you know, being a junior, we're nimble, so you can go where there are good opportunities. And you know, I know. You know, we moved to Chile looking for gold. It's not to say we're not interested in battery metals or in Namibia at all, but you know, we did have a look at gold in Namibia. It's far more prospective in the southern Andes of Chile that's not been explored, and there's, you know, you can do reasonable deals and take up, you know, some good some prospects, you know. So yeah, again, nothing against. You know, Africa or Namibia at all. It's just driven by geology and investor sentiment.
Brilliant, Tony. Thank you. And I think no surprises there on some of the real benefits that you've showcased for Namibia. Mitford and Sam, I think a really important question or topic to address is the support that junior companies such as yourselves are receiving from government in helping you build your businesses. So, Mitford, do you want to comment on that? And then Sam, I'll bring you in to talk about how the Zimbabwean government is supporting the growth of its mining sector in particular areas. Mitford.
Yes, Laura, the South African junior sector is actually still a bit young. Being traditionally an industry that was dominated by large mining houses, mainly due to the capital-intensive nature, deep underground mines. So junior miners in South Africa also a bit different. They tend to want to take projects from start to finish, operate them, build them, fund them. You know, so you know, instead of selling them off to the larger players. So this is not a road without obstacles and needs investors that are patient. You know, after years of exploration and development, when you know eventually the junior explorer finds a mine and wants to build a mine, the last thing they want to hear is that the approval process is going to take 2 years. So you know, so as I said earlier, there's good signs now, at least, not just for the juniors, but for everyone in terms of the approval processes. But there are other things as well, you know, regulatory aspects that you know really designed for the big operators and you know should be improved on for the juniors. So yes, government can do more for the junior sector, but it needed a voice, and that voice came about 5 years ago through the Junior and Emerging Miners Desk. It was established by the Minerals Council, so there's a voice now for the juniors speaking to government. And Minister Mantashe, Minister of Mines and Energy, has also expressed his willingness to engage with this. So the current situation, I believe, will also bring more urgency in this area, and so I believe we will start to see good movement there.
Thanks, Mitford. Sam, do you want to talk about support from the Zimbabwean government?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Look, firstly, I'd probably also like to just echo some of the comments there from Mitford. I mean, the regulatory burden and hurdles are certainly you know, a focus point for juniors. And I think in Zimbabwe in particular, there's been a variety of legislative sort of change, and to some degree, there's been quite large shifts in legislative opinion, and that's made people wary. And I think to talk more specifically about the last couple of years, you know, Zimbabwe has gone through its own sort of transformation. There's a real strong desire within Zimbabwe to become a middle income economy by 2030. There's a strong desire by government to support the sort of emergence of a junior sector, mining in particular, as that is about 60 to 65% of net foreign proceeds received by government. So if Zimbabwe is going to attain its 2030 vision to be a middle income country, it's going to need to enable juniors and mining businesses to play a much bigger role than they currently are. And to that effect, the government's they've swiftly moved to address the legislation challenges that have been increasingly more sort of challenging for juniors and for mining in general. And so in the last 2 years, we've seen a strong government focus on liberating that legislative hurdle and enabling the developer or the promoter, such as Prospect Resources. So to speak a little bit more specifically, because I think those are general tones that I think Mitford would also agree with, and I'm sure the same with Tony. But to be more specific, the president of Zimbabwe, President Edi Mnangagwa, he presides over the initially a rapid results process or initiative. And through that, Arcadia project was the mining project within the portfolio of projects. There were tourism projects, there were various projects. And Arcadia, on a 6 to 9 month period, was able to get fully permitted on the basis of the focus generated through the Office of the President. And so that just enabled us to put forward timelines that we needed to achieve to satisfy our investors and the development plan. So the Rapid Results Initiative was the first. We were later awarded a project of national significance, and that had additional incentives. It wasn't literally a sort of national pedigree. It was, you know, that this is a project that's going to underpin the development of the country. And finally, the third and the most prominent initiative has been the formation of special economic zones, for which Prospect Resources applied in late 2018 and was awarded a license last year. So the licensee or the holder of a special economic zone has a number of entitlements, and they are all in service of liberating the investment challenges and hurdles that we face. So we've been tremendously lucky. We've had a government that's made itself accessible. The Minister of Mines, Minister Winston Chitando, you know, he's a prominent miner and knows the challenges that miners face. He's adopted a very pragmatic approach to getting decisions made in government. So consequently, we can advocate and certainly put forward our case as one where maximum support from government really had transformational impacts on our timeframes and our permitting process. So consequently, we're fully permitted, which is tremendously good for us.
Okay, Malora, may I say that one-stop shop then in Harare, I thought it was a great idea that we can learn from in South Africa.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for that input, Mitford. Sam, you really highlighted how much the government is showing support. Do you want to highlight some of the key attractive sort of options that make Arcadia such a great project? And on feeding off of that, how have you overcome the existing challenges that do occur in Zimbabwe?
Okay, I'd like to just keep going with Zimbabwe, and then I'll talk a little bit about Arcadia. Look, Zimbabwe's got over 100 years of mining experience, so the mining code is, in our opinion, mature and stable. In terms of it as a mining jurisdiction, there's over 1,000 large-scale, medium to large-scale mines in Zimbabwe. So it is a mining country. It underpins the sort of national economics and is a major source of foreign exchange. So Zimbabwe really is, shall we say, you know, it's a mineral powerhouse. There's lots of great mineral opportunities, and after many years of low investment climate, it's grossly underexplored in our opinion, and particularly for lithium. So we've been very focused and had lots of success in Zimbabwe. And then to talk a little bit about the Arcadia project, of course we've overcome some of the challenges in Zimbabwe, but some were really gifted in the Arcadia project. It's based just outside Harare. Its interconnection with infrastructure like roads and power and water are within 11-15 kilometers, which is really, from a development perspective, quite simplistic. We won't require a massive capital intensity that is often associated with some of the mines, particularly in Western Australia and some of the remote areas I've worked. We don't require camps and large social facilities because we are so well located to Harare. So we won't host or have any camps of any nature on site. And then, lastly, how are we securing investor support? Well, the Arcadia project has a number of key competitive advantages, and they're quite technical and a little bit lumpy, but they're worth talking through, because lithium is in a low cycle, and it should come out of that low cycle soon. But even in a low cycle, some of the very low cost producers are maintaining, holding, or increasing market share. As a result of the near surface geology of the Arcadia project, very low strip ratio, the actual mining contribution, which is the largest contribution of operating expenditure and therefore cost of production, is very low, probably in the lowest quartile. Grade is in the highest quartile, scale is in the highest quartile. And so when you look at these in an economic assessment, the Arcadia project would probably have some of the lowest cost spodumene if it were in operation. It has a very low capital intensity on the account of its location so close to Harare. And so these are major attributes that our investors hugely support. But probably the sort of jewel in the crown is a product called petalite, which is a 4% lithium product. It's always been perceived to be slightly inferior to its 6% spodumene peer on the account of it being slightly low in lithium units. But we've discovered and explored and secured an offtake now to supply petalite into the European market, which is an alternate market. It makes up over 20% of total lithium consumption, and it's for glass and ceramic production. And so, this market's a very mature market, over 60 years old, and it's not growing at the same rate as the EV market, but it offers a real stable market to diversify our products into. So we'll serve both the glass ceramics market and the chemical market for batteries, and on the account of our very low operating cost, we're sort of putting ourselves forward in the race. So that's how we're offsetting our sort of jurisdiction risk. I think it's the class of the asset.
Thanks, Sam. Again, such a critical point, for any junior building a project in Africa. And let's us not forget that the lithium market has many potential routes that can make for a really attractive project. Tony, legislation in Namibia. I mean, we all know the country and we all think we're fairly familiar with it, but in your perspective, what do you think are the key legislation points investors should be aware of when looking to invest in the mining sector in the country?
Yeah, look, it's got a very straightforward mining legislation. It's very clear. There are certain time limits in terms of putting applications for prospecting licenses in. So it's got a low tax rate. It's got low royalties. It's competitive. With pretty much internationally any country. So that's what we look for. We're trying to find deposits that you're going to mine, and obviously Sam and Mitford have done that. But in the exploration game or the business, we're looking for the new mines. So obviously Namibia with Botswana probably I class them as tier 1 mining jurisdictions in Africa. And I understand what everybody's been saying and so and well done, and again, I'm not trying to be derogatory there, but as a Canadian company and an international company with investors all over the world, there's risk enough in exploration, so okay, I'm a good geologist, okay, well these are the 3 places you should go, chaps, or investor. Okay, so which of those 3, and there's lots of matrix there, and one of them's the mining legislation. How, if you find something, is it going to be a mine? Obviously it's got the grade in the tons, and it's got good infrastructure so you can transport your materials. It got good, a skills base. Is the mining legislation, is the fiscal structure, is it good? And we've got a big uranium mine not very far away from where we're operating, over $1 billion, big mine, a global asset. So that tells you a great deal about the investability of you to find the right project in Namibia. So there's no, I don't have any real concerns. Obviously, any concerns you have, you have in any jurisdiction, is your application at the top of the pile? Does it get moved around? And so on, but I don't see that in Namibia. You've got good people working for you, and you can find good partners, which in any jurisdiction it can be testing. But with experience, you carry on. So I was also a non-exec board director of Oryx Gold, and we bought the Otjikoto mine from Vale, and then started doing a lot of work on it. It was actually an Anglo-Val discovery that was never going to get bigger for various reasons, and then it went into Vale, and they were exploring for copper and so on. And we were developing a mine there, and eventually B2 Gold bought the company, and it's one of the best mines in B2 Gold's portfolio in Africa. So yeah, grade does a lot, but you can have the highest grade deposit in the world. It's not going to be mined. You need good legislation, good people. You got everything there in Namibia. So yeah, 10 stars for Namibia on that one.
Brilliant, Tony. good points there. I don't want to really harp on too much about COVID-19. I know we're all dealing with the impacts of that, but it is good to chat about it a little bit. So Mitford and Sam, I would like to hear specifically how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected your businesses, and maybe looking at it from a positive perspective with regards maybe to the adoption of technology and maybe the removal of constraints such as travel restrictions. So Mitford, do you want to talk around that for a little bit?
Yeah, I think this topic has been discussed so much, Laura, so I don't want to bore the audience. I mean, we've obviously done all the things like Zoom and so on, and I think more importantly, really, is that this whole COVID crisis stopped the world and made us think. And so we're in the fortunate position where we are now as Theta Gold, and where we're starting to build these new mines, where we can say, well, the world is changing. changing permanently. So how do we structure, rethink what is appropriate in terms of structuring and the way of work? In terms of the technologies, you want to put in technology that's really going to sort of reduce exposure, management systems that, data management systems that give you real-time information, automation, so that's really, I think, to us, it's really, in a way, it created an opportunity, because we would have done these things, in creating these new mines, but it really has put more urgency on it. And so I think the world, there's no post-COVID-19, there's only post-reality check after this.
Richard, thank you so much. Brilliant thought there. Sam, how has COVID-19 impacted your business?
First, so we're an Australian business based in Australia with an asset in Zimbabwe. So we obviously are impacted heavily, but I think what we found is that there's lots of ways to get the business done, and we're not in an operation, so we don't have the sort of larger operational issues of containment, isolation, etc. We're a small business and we have a very small team. And this year we've taken the opportunity to drive down costs of our business, and by doing so, travel's been a big expense that we've forfeited, but we've managed to demonstrate that we are still able to get the business done. Lots of tools have emerged that were probably out there that we just didn't really understand the full potential of. So we're certainly getting the business done. But from our perspective, when we look at COVID-19, we look at the world that will emerge as a result of these reality checks. We've certainly demonstrated, I think, globally, that a reduction in emissions has a real and material impact on air quality. With power stations that have been off, and the industrial sector on a lowdown, people have really said, wow, we just saw a massive improvement. And so the sort of exciting bit for us is the governments and various territories moving towards zero carbon commitments, because in doing so, they're sort of accelerating the adoption of the electrification, which is essentially the business that we're picking for the future. We've seen that that's the trend to get behind. We've got a strong asset with a long life, and it's a long thematic. But what we've seen this year is that COVID-19 has established the sort of commitment to zero carbon, and I think we are all indebted to that, to COVID for that, particularly for the next generations. So for us, we're seeing this as a big market opportunity, and certainly within our business, we've made adaptations as a junior, and we're doing quite fine.
Thanks, Sam. As always, the mining industry showing its resilience to any challenge that we may have to deal with. I think while we are in this sort of topic, Mitford, a very interesting question has come through from the audience, and they are asking, do you think South Africa has an advantage on technology investment and adoption over other African countries?
Yeah, I would say, we probably have a good advantage through our institutions, and there's lots of research and development that has happened from the industry collaborative perspective, and the universities with the university. So yes, lots of development, technologically development taking place, but it actually, when it happens, whether it happens in South Africa, or Australia, or Zimbabwe, it doesn't matter. The world is a very small place, and it's really, it doesn't matter where it gets developed. We're all the beneficiaries of that.
Thanks, Mitford. Tony, we can't ignore Namibia, so how has COVID-19 impacted the region there?
Well, we're not doing very much in Namibia, so it's not impacted us any deal at all, other than dealing with our auditors and our our legal guys. We've got a consultant there, but really, we changed from a lithium company, focus company, to a gold company during this COVID time. And so we changed. We raised some money. We picked up some very good assets in southern Chile, in an area that's not really been explored before for gold, but it's got a lot of gold showings. And due to networking, and I think everybody here's got a network. So I worked in Chile before. I got a QP in Chile, a really good geologist I worked with for 10 years. We've got good legal people there. We do Zoom calls all the time. I do Zoom calls with our investors. And really, I think so you can, as this argument, you can make a plan, and you have to make a plan. So in fact, I wouldn't say, other than me not going to the property, then that's the only downfall there's been, but just in saying that, the guys took out a drone, recently and took some aerial shots of the prospect areas that we want to drill. And we're looking at quite a lot of new submissions in terms of projects that we're looking to acquire or so on. Through networks, we've got pretty good geologists, we've got a QP, we've got an office, we've got admin people. It's just a different way of operating, and so should the lithium price go up again, we'd be doing exactly the same, if the COVID crisis continues in Namibia. It's I think it's a clear indication to me that the new world is not necessarily about having expats flying all around the world, going to different projects and so on. Is by having that expertise in country. And so that's one of the reasons, the countries that we're showcasing today, Zimbabwe's got it's got a great mining history, and a lot of professionals are still there. Likewise in South Africa, and Namibia is exactly the same. So I want a good geologist, good mining engineer, a project manager, mechanical, metallurgist. They're all there in country. I don't have to fly people in. So that's one of the huge advantages of this region. It's been built up over, over centuries, and you're probably correct there, actually. The mining infrastructure, and I'm talking about the IP and people, the institutions that we got, the mining schools and so on. And the great database of projects, exploration, surveys and so on that have been built up, and hopefully not destroyed too much with what's been going on in the last 20 years. So, yeah, new lessons.
Always new lessons to be learned, hey, Tony? So with entering into our sort of last 10 minutes of the session, I think we are all sort of maybe a little bit more convinced about the investments attraction of the three countries we're covering. So I'd like each of you to touch on where your projects are at the moment. So Sam, I know Prospect announced a 6 million fundraise this week. Can you tell us what are the use of those proceeds going to be used for, and what is the company's development timetable for your project?
Thank you, Laura. I mentioned at the beginning that we've got a really strong technical team, and I probably just want to talk a little bit about that for a bit, because that's going to play an important role in setting the scene as we go forward. But over the last couple of years, there's certainly been lots of headwinds in the lithium sector, and so our team have really applied themselves, mostly in South Africa and Zimbabwe, to really look at different technologies, techniques to maximize the exploitation of our asset. The sort of previous generation of hard rock pegmatites mined currently in Australia, we saw a lot of techniques and technologies that were rushed, equipment selection that was rushed, processing design a bit hasty. And we've had the opportunity to watch all of these producers here in Western Australia take time to optimize their projects. And we've taken all of that knowledge, we've added it with the knowledge that we have ourselves accumulated about our own asset. And in particular, our knowledge of the market, sort of the alternate market for our petalite products. And we've put together a plan that we have used to raise 6 million Australian dollars, and that's to put in a pilot plant to trial the pure flotation of petalite and spodumene. And it'll be the first time it's done on a semi-industrial scale for petalite. And looking at the sort of quality of the products that we have been getting from petalite, it's of such a high impurity that that we sort of there's so little iron contamination in the petalite that we're seeing premiums from the glass and ceramic market that have attracted us to getting into the project quicker rather than timing it with the recovery of the lithium sort of EV sector. So basically, in the period ahead, we'll be building that pilot plant. We'll be completing a FEED study, a front-end engineering design study, which will look at that pilot plant operation and learn from that too. And we'd like to, by the middle of next year, be in a position to commence a graduation development plan that gets us to our DFS nameplate. So we're very excited. We feel we're in a very strong position. Sentiment in the market from the beginning of the year towards the end of the year has changed very dramatically. We're seeing global, or certainly national consumer confidence here in Australia higher now than it was pre-COVID. So we're really all focused now on recovering from this, and recognition that Arcadia is going to play quite an important role in sort of the next EV sector's rush. So that's sort of what we're trying to do. I guess it's positioning, being ready.
Thanks, Sam, and I have no doubt we're going to continue to see great momentum from Prospect with your Arcadia project moving forward. Mitford, should COVID-19 continue to play a role into next year, what is Theta's plan to mitigate any further risks that may occur from that? And can you also outline the company's strategic objectives for 2021?
Yes, Laura, I think I've said earlier what my positive views are, that COVID-19 actually brought us more opportunity than, in a way, than what we had before that. So just Theta Gold Mines invested in around the Pilgrim's Rest, Sabi area in Mpumalanga, South Africa. So I haven't said it earlier, but we have 6 million ounces under management. And it stretches over about 100 kilometers from north to south, north of Pilgrim's Rest and then south of Sabi. And as I said, these mines have been mined from the 1800s. The last one, Beta mine, was operating until 1974. There's been a bit of scratching around after that, but really the focus has moved elsewhere. So any person looking at it say, well, why is it still in the ground? Well, if I can give you an example of what we find is, we've still studying literally thousands of documents from the old times and more recent times. And so the one mine, Beta mine, was the one that was last in operation. They had a pay limit grade of more than 18 grams per ton. So you can imagine how they developed and scrambled around finding these high grades. And today we have a pay limit there. We know how we would operate that mine. It would be less than a gram per ton. So what it's actually given us these opportunities of pre-development, and it is near surface mines that it's still standing even after many, many years. So we're very excited, but that given, so we have lots and lots of attacking points, and the company's been in exploration and sort of project development mode now for the last 5 to 6 years, and it's been a systematic approach. And in the next year, we'll be bringing a CIL plant to about 50,000 tons a month into operation, treating the open cast project, which is the first phase. But we are accelerating the development of the underground opportunities, because there are just so many of them, and it's actually easy to access. So we're busy with just formalizing these plans now in pre-feasibility studies, but it sort of is already well on its way to being more on a feasibility level because we have it's brownfields with lots of information. So we're applying new technology, really changing. You know, one other interesting point from the old days is, you know, Fowler mine, for instance, the most northern mine, achieved a 5-meter face advance per month. Now, I mean, we all know what we can do today, and they still did it profitably. So we're very excited about it, and so you can expect, I think, many announcements in the next few months, because we are working towards about 200,000 ounces per annum for the next 3 to 4 years. So yes, that's and that's so. I'm not sure if I've answered your question fully, Laura, but yeah, that's a bit more about us.
That's great, Mitch, but we'll be watching the space closely. So Tony, will you round us off by telling us what Montero's strategy is for your Namibian assets?
It's very simple. Wait for the lithium price to go up. No, just in closing, I think you know, we've been through a downturn pretty much over the last 10 years, or a little bit more. There was a little blip in 11, but we've been in a downturn, and Africa, and certainly Southern Africa, with its talent and its deposits and its people, has got the opportunity to cash in on this next upswing in the global hunt for metals and requirement for different metals and commodities. I think we missed, you know, this part of the world, and Africa pretty much missed largely the last big upturn for various reasons. And I think this next one's coming, and you've seen it in the gold price already. Metals are getting short. Lithium price is going to come up. Rare earths are going to come. Copper, gold, all of them, and they're found in this continent, and this certainly part of this in Southern Africa in abundance. You've got to, you know, we need investment, and the best way to showcase investments is Sam to bring his mine on, Mitford to increase his mining production. There's no big stories. There's no saying, well, why did you not do it? You know, there's no, you know, there's no nationalization, royalties, changing in legislation that we see, you know, and uncertainty. That's the last thing we need in this business, is uncertainty. So I think if African governments are listening at all, let's get some uncertainty into the continent, into your legislation, and let's you know, let's all work together to see the benefits from this next upswing in metal prices and demand, because I think a large part of it could come from Southern Africa.
Thanks, Tony, and an excellent way to close, so much appreciated. I do know we have received quite a lot of questions from our audience, so we will work with our speakers to get some of those questions answered for you. So without further ado, Elodie, I'll hand back to you to close our session today.
Thank you, Laura. And on behalf of Africa Mining Forum and Mining Over Africa, thank you so much to the panelists today for sharing all the valuable insight with us. I would like also to thank you, Laura, for moderating that great session. And I think we could all have used another 20 minutes to dive into the region a bit more. And as you said, we had quite a lot of questions from the audience, and I will make sure that our panelists receive more. I think one of the key reminders of the current pandemic was raised with most of our panelists is the potential acceleration of AI technologies into mining due to remote conditions. So we really hope that will continue to evolve to accommodate more junior in Africa. And Tony, I will coach you on that one. I think it was quite straightforward. There are new lessons to learn, and the new world won't be about flying expats, but having a strong team of expats in country. And I think it's a nice food for thought for the next 12-month strategy. I would like to remind all of you that the recording of today's webinar will be available on demand on the miningover.com and Africa Mining Forum. The tour is almost reaching its end on our side. Our next stop will be in Angola on the 3rd of November, where we'll be looking at the latest regulation change to open the diamond sector, and you can already register. And we kept the best for our last, as the digital event will be kicking off on the 16th of November for 5 days, and we have prepared an exciting speaker lineup for the audience. The keynote will be moderated by Sheila Kama, Non-Executive Director, Consultant for Mineral, Oil and Gas, and welcome the CEO of Wanda Mine Petroleum and Gas Board, Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for Africa at the UK Department of Trade, the Head of Mining and Metals at the World Economic Forum, and the CEO of Africa Investors. Check out the full agenda on africaminingforum.com and register today. Please stay safe, keep well, and thank you so much again for the support. Thank you for joining us.